What's going on, everyone? HiramFromTheChi here, and I just got access to Softr's database beta. Now, I wrote a blog post back in 2018 and a bunch of tweets. I don't use Twitter anymore, but I wrote a bunch of content around the rebundling of software. And what I mean by that, particularly in no code, we saw platforms specializing in one thing. Okay, so right away, first impressions looks like Airtable, right? And it makes sense. Airtable has pretty much been the front runner for relational databases that are databases but look like spreadsheets, right? And so that's kind of what we're looking at here. So we got our database. We can rename this. Let's call it DB1. Looks like we can choose a color. Let's go orange because I like orange. Okay. And what else can we do? We can duplicate. Let's duplicate that. And then let's go back home. Okay, so I have two different databases. Okay, so that's nice to have off the bat, honestly. Let me delete this DB1 copy. All right, so let's work with DB1. Got our table, which I assume you can also rename. Actually, let's keep that table one default view. Okay, so we're working with views already, just like with Airtable. Let's try view 2. Okay, so it looks like this is still a grid view, at least in terms of what Airtable would call it. Okay, so it looks like first limitation I'm seeing is we don't have views. We don't have Gantt views, timeline views, gallery views, form view, things like that, right? So I guess that's the first shortcoming. Again, this is early, so I'm sure that'll come soon. But right off the bat, it seems like right now the only thing that we have to work with is grid view, or the more traditional quote-unquote spreadsheet view. Okay, looks like we have filtering. We have conditionals right off the bat. This is actually quite impressive to have conditions right off the bat. Conditionals are impressive, or conditionals are really necessary for breaking down your data, really extracting some insights. Grouping as well is a pretty advanced feature. So to have this right off the bat is quite nice. Sorting, that's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. We have fields. Okay. One little thing that I'm seeing here, and this is something that I'm as a writer, and I'm very detail oriented, and so one thing I would like to see here is alignment in the terminology. So if we're gonna say column visibility, then these should be called columns, but instead they're called fields. So I think we should pick a lane, either call them columns or call them fields. Personally, I prefer to call them fields. But that's one thing that I would say. It's a small thing, and again, it's early. Let me say that 1,000 more times. It's early, it's okay, it's in beta. This is what we're going through this video for. But I'd say column visibility, this should really be field visibility, especially because here we're searching for fields, right? So we should align on the terminology there. Right off the bat, we're given a name, description, status. Let's take a look at the different field types that we have. So we have the AI field coming soon. Okay. We have linking, which is good to have right off the bat. Relational databases are not relational if you can't link to other tables, right? If you can't link to a different data set, then you really don't have a relational database. You essentially just have a spreadsheet. So linking in another record is good to have right off the bat. Lookup, that's also a good one. We got the standard short text, long text file, checkbox, user, okay, URL, currency. This is surprising, and this is where maybe things get very subjective, what fields should be what, right? So in my mind, typically I like to just work with a number field, and then that number field can be formatted as a currency or formatted as a percent, rather than having the fields be field types on their own. It's not a huge deal, but I like to just work with raw numbers and then format them accordingly. And that gets really when you have different field types for numbers, it gets kind of finicky, because if you say, for example, 5%, if you do 5% in a number field, it's going to be designated as 0.05, right? Whereas if you have a percent field, it would literally just be 5%. So it's little things like that, little quirks that we have to be on the lookout for in terms of user experience. Rating, formula, love a good formula field, roll up, record ID, and then we have these created at, last modified at, created by. So these are all fields that get updated on their own. We have an auto number field. I'm actually a big auto number guy. We can use the row IDs here, but I typically like, if I'm doing something that's sequential, like an order, for example, or an inventory tracking system, and you just want to say, this is item number 1, item number 2, and so on and so forth, that auto number field comes in handy. Looks like the button field's coming soon. Okay. All right, so we got some stuff to work with. Looks like we can add a record from down here. So let's try Mary James. Description, the status, done. Okay, so again, similar interface and similar experience here to Airtable, where we can add records. It looks like we're missing field summaries down here, right? So things I would calculate, things like min, max, average, standard deviation, or when it comes to dates, what's the earliest date, latest date, things like that. So I'd love to see that, once Softr Databases is out of beta. You have, okay, this is just live support. Let's ignore that for now. Okay, let's see. Let's try to work with some data. So I'm gonna go back home to my dashboard. Let's actually import some data. So let's select our data source. Okay, so Airtable as a data source is not going away. So I'm actually curious to see how this will work, because if your data already works in Airtable, and I'm not sure if this is going to bring it natively into Softr Databases, or if this just creates a sync between Softr Databases and an Airtable database, which obviously would be redundant. In that case, you might as well just go Softr front end to Airtable database. But it's good to Airtable has always been Softr's primary data source, so it makes sense that you'd make it compatible for Softr Databases. Google Sheets, again, another popular data source. I'm not a Google user. Everyone should try to avoid Google as much as they can, but hey, it's a topic for another time.